Hey, to commemorate Season 1 of Omniscient Reader having ended, I wanted to make a video ranking every single arc / saga in the series. So, let's go. By the way, scenarios aren't exactly arcs, but I'd say they're closer to sagas because they can have multiple arcs, which does happen. And spoiler warning for the entire manhwa up to date, so this is your cue to leave if you haven't caught up to it. 3, 2, 1, and let's get started. So, starting off, we have the first main scenario and the bridge arc plus the Dokaibi contract arc. This is literally the first arc. We get introduced to a lot of the main characters in this arc, with a few exceptions. Like, for example, Yoo Jung-hyuk. I honestly don't know how to pronounce his name, so I'm just going to call him Jung-hyuk. If that's wrong, sorry, I'll have to deal with it because I don't know how to pronounce it if it's not that. Yoo Jung-hyuk is here and he is sassy as ever. When thinking about this video, it's been a while since I read the start, so I had to reread a few chapters here and there to get the gist of it. And I had completely forgotten that Jung-hyuk had the Eye of the Sage. I think he only used it once in the series, and it was right here in this bridge arc. Kim Deok immediately shows us that there's loopholes in the scenarios and shows us an example in literally the first scenario. The first scenario where you have to kill someone / something. A different character that shows up later is literally an example for this scenario, which the Dokaibi showed, and she was the only one that survived from her entire school. And that's an important character that shows up a bit later. Dokja shows the loophole for us, which is killing an insect instead of a human, because it was never said what you had to kill. Like, kill one or more living organisms. He did what was needed. That's literally a loophole. Or not a loophole, but people immediately assume that you had to kill a human being, when it can be just a bug, ant, or whatever. And in Dokja's case, it was just an insect. Apparently, Gil-young was also in this arc, which surprised me a lot, because I thought he appeared in like the third arc. So yeah, I was really surprised. Then Jung-hyuk literally gives 0 fucks and tries to kill Dokja, but Dokja tries to get out of it by saying he's a prophet, but Jung-hyuk doesn't buy it, and then he just proceeds to throw him into a mouth of the creature. I don't know what level it is or how it was called, but he threw him into a sea emperor, if I had to guess. I don't know. But then, inside the belly of that creature, he literally outsmarts the Dokaibi at its own game. He gets a contract with the Dokaibi, and he gets 100% of the coin, which is insane. His argument was that he doesn't have a supporting constellation, so there's already heavy fees just to give him coins. The Dokaibi was of course pissed, but man, this was so funny. The Dokaibi almost gets scammed, and then he gets out of the creature's stomach and he immediately starts the second scenario. Very good intro to the story, A tier. Second main scenario, the encounter / Guemho Station. In this scenario, we meet... Hey, this is me from editing, and I just realized that I was talking about Pildu when I was supposed to be talking about Inho Cheon. I still can't pronounce Korean names, so I'll be talking about stuff that happened in the third main scenario accidentally, because I mixed up, as I said before, Pildu and Ino. Sorry, every time I'm going to mention Pildu, it's going to be wrong. It was supposed to be in the next arc, so yeah, just know that I messed up here. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. Pildu Gong. And in this arc, he's one of the 10 evils, and we can see why. He's incredibly green. He takes Dokja, as he be doing sometimes, to outsmart him. If you don't remember this arc well, then you aren't alone. While making the concept for this video, I had to basically reread this arc to remember the finer details. Like, I had completely forgotten the fight with the Warden of the Dark, which I remember how it started and that it was a cool fight, but I don't remember anything past that. During this arc, we meet Ki-won, who immediately goes to Dokja's side because he's righteous, at least in her eyes. Then during a raid, Dokja and his group at the time, which were himself, Yongsung Lee, Sangak, and Hee-won, just sit it out, and Dokja makes a contract with a constellation to save Pildu, which was that constellation's only incarnation. And the constellation bankrupted, so Pildu was using his own lifespan to keep fighting. And since Pildu was dying and the constellation couldn't keep watching, the constellation actually signed the contract, basically making Pildu Dokja's puppet. And at the very end, we meet Jihye. I cannot pronounce Korean names. When all is said and done, I think this arc is a B tier. Then it's the third main scenario, called the Green Zone, and it also included the Chungmoro Station and the Theater Dungeon arcs. I very much like the idea behind this one. The weak / almost everyone hide in the green zones while the swarm comes and goes. Meanwhile, the strong, Jung-hyuk, can just deal with it. Then in the break between the swarms, Dokja meets Jihye Lee and slowly gains her trust. Then Doctor does, as he literally does almost every arc, and does some loopholes or secrets that only a reader like him would know. Like, how is anyone else supposed to know that there are secret green zones? That's just insane. Then, moving on to the next arc, which was the Theater Dungeon arc, Doctor finds Jihye, takes her along, and he slowly gains her trust. And that's especially the case after the Sea Time scenario, where Jihye unlocks her real ability, I guess. I'm not sure how to call it right now. And then Jihye starts to trust him more and more after that. And then right after that, Dokje runs straight to Junghyuk to see if he's even alive. And he is alive, but he was just defeated by the theater master. Or theater... This guy, right here. This guy, right here. He isn't actually that strong himself, but I think Dokje said that he had the most powerful mental attacks in the entire series, which I would put up to debate with another character in the series later on. And Junghyuk couldn't win against him because that's Junghyuk's probably biggest weakness. It's his mental. And Dokje, of course, goes to the rescue, but Junghyuk is about to kill himself again because of the regression's depression, and also due to the fact that he lost to the film master. Dokje barely beats him and gets him out of the control of the theater master. And Junghyuk whispers to him, "Who are you?" As for a moment, Junghyuk regains his sanity, I guess you could say. And then, I don't know how Dokje got to the theater master, but at the end, somehow, the theater master got killed by the fourth wall. I like this more than scenario 2, but I'm not sure if I can put it in A tier. It's either high B tier or low A tier. Next is the fourth scenario, the King's Qualification, plus the Prophet's Arc, plus War of the Kings and Struggle for the Throne Arc. In this saga, people who become king or queen have to battle it out until there's only 5 left. If I remember correctly, there were a bit less than 20 at the start. And also, in between this fight, we see Soyun, not in her real body though. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And Dokje was a king, and Junghyuk was after him, man, because he couldn't find his sister. I think Junghyuk's sister was the only family member of his alive at this point. So he immediately knew it was Dokje, and he immediately started to accuse and looking for him. And Dokje was actually at fault at the end. And while trying to find him, he was wreaking havoc, man. Right before he reached Dokje to kill him, he gave him a proposal to either give his sister back right now or die. Dokje said he doesn't know what he's talking about, but the lie detection skill says otherwise. While running to kill Dokje, it just so happens that enough kings and queens were killed for the next sub-scenario to start. Dokje was one of those 5 remaining kings and queens, but Dokje failed to get in the scenario because he didn't meet the requirement. He didn't get the Chungmodo station, which was his target station. But then Hee-won pulls up with Junghyuk's sister, and his sister uses fucking inventory and brings this Chungmodo station flagpole. He fulfilled the requirements just then as he captured Chungmodo's station flag. Then Dokje immediately gets transported into the arena and finds that Junghyuk is beating some major ass. But Dokje said, "Nah, I'd win." And he actually did. He beat Junghyuk's fucking ass. After that, he was supposed to go on the throne and become the king of the Koreas. But he said, nah, the Dokkaebi, I think it was the mid-level Dokkaebi at this point, says that he will destroy the throne if he doesn't go on. And Dokje just says to do it. The Dokkaebi gets mad and changes the sub-scenario a little bit to anyone can be the king or queen of the Korea now, as long as they step on the throne. While Dokje thought that he will have to do like a 1 versus 100,000 people fight, the other kings and queens and also his friends stand with him and hold off all of the NPCs that want to be kings and queens. He uses this special sword that can't kill other people and calls the Constellation of 7 Stars and uses their power to break the throne, freeing the Koreas from a one-sided ruler. Also, in this saga, the Tyrant King was hyped up to be so much, but he was just cannon fodder compared to Junghyuk. Not really. S tier. Easy. This so far is my favorite arc. This was so hype, man. 5th main scenario, part 1. Ruin City plus Kill 5 Disaster. This isn't actually a main scenario, but it's like a sub-scenario, but I think this deserves a spot. I don't actually remember much from the Ruin City arc, apart from that Kim Dokje and Soyun were the 2 main characters for which everything revolved around. I also remember there being this fight club thing. Then eventually Kim Dokja finds Sangha and Junghyuk after a fight with Junghyuk's ex-lover from a different regression, Solhwa Lee. Also in this arc, we see a bit of Dokja's past, specifically a part where he was bullied and the bully stole his phone and only read chapter 147 or something. So that's something. If I had to rate only this arc, it would be C tier. I didn't like the Ruined City arc much, to be honest. But this first part of the saga is consistent of 2 sagas. So the second arc is so good. This part is where he gets his second fable. The first fable was, of course, when he broke the ruler's throne. He got his second fable from beating the Returning, one of the 5 disasters of Seoul, which I honestly remember how everyone in Seoul defeated 4 of them, but I don't remember the last. I remember that Kim Dokja and his squad, including Junghyuk, killed the Returner. Dokja's mom killed one. Junghyuk also killed another one. And then the disaster of floods is in its separate scenario, as you can probably read here. But how Dokja killed the Returning was so fucking good. If it was just the 5 disasters of Seoul, it would be A tier. But because one arc in this mini saga is A tier, one is in C tier, I'll have to round it up to B tier. But the 5 disasters arc was amazing. Then the second part of main scenario 5, the Catastrophe of Floods. Holy shit. I fucking loved this arc. It of course had an amazing story, amazing art, and amazing action. It had a really good antagonist, Yo Song Shin, and also a character to absolutely hate, a mid-level Dokaibi. This had plot twist after plot twist. This is the part of the story where I started to love Omniscient Reader's View. I had really liked it before, but during this arc, I started to love it. After everything seemed to be going just fine, that damned Junghyuk decided to open the disaster early, and how Dokja died for him because of his mistake. When Yosong started to realize that Junghyuk wasn't just controlling everyone and using them like in the previous regression, but everyone told her that Dokja was their leader. And when he came back, even Junghyuk didn't even deny it. He just told her to not kill everyone or herself, but to try to exclusively kill him. Then Yusong, the disaster of floods, started to have faith in this world and started to believe. But then that fucking mid-level Dokaibi made her evil. Oh my god, how I wanted to punch that motherfucker in the face in that moment. It just makes me mad thinking about it. She also finally learns who Dokja is through Dokja when Dokja is dead. I think it was Omniscient Reader level 2, and the disaster touches the Yusong of this world, who is still a child, and she sees Dokja through her eyes. She sees who Dokja really is. And of course, as I said before, she gets made evil by the mid-level Dokai, and she starts fighting because she doesn't have control of her body. During that fight, the main fights are Dokja and Junghyuk versus Yusong, and Dokja's squad, plus the remaining kings and queens, against the flood monsters. As the fight nears its end, Dokja and Junghyuk get tired, Ki-won pulls up and immediately kills Yusong. This arc is another S tier. It is incredible. So I accidentally forgot to include this hidden scenario, which was just the Underworld arc. So yeah, I added it now, but let's continue with the video. During the first 2 chapters in this arc, Dokja gains another fable by beating the shit out of the mid-level Dokai as the first promise to Yosun. Then this arc starts with Dokja trying to contact the god of alcohol and ecstasy to try to bring him to Hades. But he can't, so he has to travel to the Underworld himself, where he actually sees a familiar face, Demon Kim Nanwon. It looks like he's changed a lot, and everyone in this part of the Underworld is building a robot for some reason, which I can't remember at the moment. Then he gets found out, and he meets with Persephone to a dinner, but he doesn't eat any of the food because he won't be able to leave, as this has happened to Junghyuk before, and apparently the food was so tasty that it was described for multiple pages in 3 ways to survive the apocalypse. But then Junghyuk found out that he was forced to stay in the Underworld because he ate the food. Then Dokja starts to try to negotiate with Persephone, but it fails miserably. He wanted to get Yosung's soul, and it was very likely that Persephone knows how to, or maybe even has her soul. But Dokja ended up staying alive, barely, and that's how that arc ended. But it turns out that Hades was in that room, but he's just very shy, but he didn't interact with Dokja. I'd say this is a solid beat here, pretty good arc. 6th main scenario, Abandoned World. This might be one of the most unique arcs. This takes place in a completely new world, in a world of small mini people. Yes, I just said that sentence. Later, we learned that this world was a fantasy world based off someone else's story, and we actually meet the original author of this fantasy mini world. We also learn about her association with the author of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, someone who we hadn't really learned anything about. My personal theory is that the author of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse is Secretive Plotter, and Omniscient Reader is a direct sequel to 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. Because for us, Dokcha is the protagonist, and he said in the first chapter that 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse was ending that. So it would actually make sort of sense. We meet this almost godlike creature that was created as a desperate attempt from the author of that world to keep retention from the audience so that the original fantasy story wouldn't be cancelled, I guess. Because the author desperately wanted to make just a simple fantasy world, but the world and the readers were just not fucking with the story. But it still ended up being cancelled, and the author of 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse took over the story for the main Scenario 6 world. So, Dokcha, knowing who Kyrgios, let's call him that. Knowing who Kyrgios is, he went to train. He went to train him and also kind of take advantage at the same time, which he actually ended up doing, as he stole a bookmark, and it turns out later that he can only use Kyrgios' ability if he's a small person or mini person. After that, he fights the shadow of a fabled constellation. He, together with Junghyuk, managed to defeat it. One thing I'm a little bit confused about is that Kyrgios ends up showing up to the end of the fight, but I think he just stands around doing nothing at the end because Dokcha ends up getting the kill. And yeah, after this, they just hang around, some character development. At the end of this arc, Dokcha gains the ability to shrink, so he can use the lightning ability from Kyrgios however much he wants. And he also gains his 8 lives ability here. Pretty good arc, pretty unique, very interesting. 8 tier, pretty good. Oh, how I've been waiting for this. I really like the 8th scenario. By the way, if you're confused, we skip over the 7th scenario because the 7th scenario is only there for people who didn't participate in the 6th scenario, so we just don't know what it is. The 8th scenario only happens because this world is just too strong. So there's a proposal from the Dokkaibis. Either kill your strongest incarnation or kill half of Seoul's population. Also, the scenario said that the strongest incarnation will know who they are, and Junghyuk, being who he is, immediately thinks he is the strongest because he's arrogant. Dokcha suggests that it might not be Junghyuk and starts saying some possible solutions, listing himself as the first possible person. Everyone laughs at him, but of course at the end of the chapter we see that he is the strongest incarnation. Also, I think it's time to mention Nirvana. She is the person who is also thought to be the strongest incarnation, and she preaches about living in the present. She really wants to almost unite or combine with Junghyuk because she thinks that it might end her life. Because her ability, I don't remember what she's called. I remember there's regression, returnees, and something else which Nirvana was. Nirvana dies over again as the species that killed her last time. Like, I think she started out as a bug that was eaten by a snake, so she became a snake. Blah blah blah. Now she's a human, strong as fuck. She's a bit stronger than Jung at this time. So yeah, that's who she is. Then by the time Junghyuk and Nirvana the arena and time to fight, 10,000 people have already died in Seoul, which is 10%. So theoretically, only 40,000 more people would have to die to move on to the next scenario. As they're fighting, we see Dokcha's almost dead body. We see Dokcha almost spectating from Omniscient Reader's viewpoint, level 1, I assume. Then the next panel snaps to Soyoung, who had stabbed Dokcha in the heart. And then next panel she says, "Will you really die? To let me be the 3rd strongest." During the fight of Nirvana and Junghyuk, as Junghyuk seems to be winning, Nirvana breaks through his advanced mental barrier level 5. She uses 101 worries on Junghyuk, and Junghyuk passes out. Dokcha tells him that he's done enough and to just let him take over, and so he does. From Nirvana's perspective, she just beats Junghyuk, and now he's suddenly awake again, and 101 worries just doesn't do anything. She tries to use it again and again, fails. It fails again. But then she sees in Junghyuk's eyes that something is different. She immediately says, who are you? Then she uses thought infection. Then she gets to this like almost different realm of where souls reside. And then she sees, of course, Kim Dokja's soul. And because she used thought infection on Junghyuk, it not only applies to Junghyuk, but to Kim Dokja as well, because he's currently in Junghyuk's body. As Nirvana goes to attack Dokja, she can't because of the fourth wall. Then it's a whole lot of talking, and Nirvana ends up being killed by the fourth wall. Then there's this semi-ominous line that says Kim Dokja can only wonder, will he end up being killed by the fourth wall as well? At the end of the fight, it is announced that Kim Dokja is strongest incarnation in Soul, and we immediately see his death. So for now, the world has to live in a world without Kim. This, as you may have known, if I talk this much about an arc, you can guess that it's S tier. This arc is legendary. My favorite arc so far, if you're wondering, is main scenario 5, Catastrophe of Floods. That is still a masterpiece. But the main scenario 8 is a close second. Next is the Constellation Banquet. It's just a singular arc. I was actually surprised to realize that it's actually not that long. It's only like 8 chapters. As Kim Dokja dies, he gets transported to the heavens. The god of alcohol and ecstasy sees him again. And he transports Dokja to this palace where all of the constellations are right now for a meeting for all of the incarnations that were invited. He warns Dokja at the end, as they're being actually attacked, to not trust anyone. An important thing to note is that he didn't tell Dokja to join Olympus, so I thought that was pretty interesting. As he enters the palace, I guess he entered from the wrong place, as every constellation was looking at silence in that moment. Then a Dokai comes to transport him to where he's supposed to be, and he meets 5 other incarnations, excluding himself. I honestly only remember 3 of them, one of them being Junghyuk, the other being the little devil of the red square, and the third being this American woman. The rest I don't remember. In the middle of waiting for their invitation to go out, the little devil of the red square laughs at Dokja for not having a nickname. But, of course, he does, but he just doesn't want to say. His nickname is the Ugly King. So of course, I wouldn't say it either. As they're entering the palace, this time from where they're supposed to, a bit of constellations cheer for incarnations that they recognize, blah blah blah, and when Dokja enters, everyone goes silent. The little devil of the red square, I'm just going to call her Russian girl now. The Russian girl smirks to herself, thinking that no one is cheering him on. Suddenly, within 5 seconds, every single constellation is shouting for Kim Dokja to look at them, talk to them, and do they recognize? And then, of course, the Russian girl is almost intimidated by the amount of support Kim Dokja has. And, of course, as Junghyuk enters, he has just the same amount of fame, almost. Just after that, Dokja warns the Russian girl to be more careful with her words and to not be so cocky. And as constellations approve of this, he gets even more coins. Then he goes to talk to some historic constellations that recognize him, some of them being the maritime god and the great king Huangmu. I'm going to assume that was correct. Then Dokja gets invited to go up to the Fable door, which is just the 2nd floor, and he also sees Junghyuk go up. He has a little interaction with Goryo's top swordsman, as Goryo's top swordsman has beef with the guards, I guess. So yeah, that happens. Then Persephone stops that conflict, and still in Sanga's body, she welcomes him to her table. And he goes there, and Dokja immediately asks her a question. Does she recognize the name Secretive Plotter? She says she doesn't know, and then a little while later, the incarnations go into the secret room. The first Nebula to approach him is Vedas. They ask him immediately with a bitter attitude, will you choose the blessing of reincarnation? Dokja asks what blessing will he get. Vedas responds the sun god's blessing. He asks another question, and then they get into some beef. As Vedas is starting to try to do something, Dokja just kicks him out of the secret room because Dokja has control over the secret room. Second to give him an offer is Olympus. He notes to himself that either the god of alcohol and ecstasy or Persephone, both being in Olympus, told him to join Olympus. So when Olympus approaches, or more precisely, the one who poked his eyes out, and the one who pokes his eyes out offers him lightning. which is a story of one of the big three gods, Zeus. Dokja asks him why would he offer a story of one of the big three. The one who poked his eyes out responds, he, along with the three goddesses of fate, have peeked into his future and say that he will need this story for the future. As he says that, he leaves. Then there's a few other constellations that approach him, for example, Uriel, or the demonic judge of fire. Then it comes time for the incarnations to tell which story they will succeed. First goes this American girl, and yeah, she does as planned. She chooses one of the stories, and that's it. Then the next one to go is Junghyuk, and Dokja realizes what he must do. And just as Junghyuk is about to succeed his story, Dokja interrupts them and says that he has an announcement. He claims that Junghyuk and himself are going to make a nebula themselves, which of course shocks everyone, and Vedas is the most bad about it. They immediately say, you're not even a constellation, you can't make a nebula. Then the Dokaibi does something that became one of my favorite parts in the entire story. They show him that he has 4 fables and how they got him. I really like this because this is like a little recap for me of the greatest moments in Omniscient reader's viewpoint. Of course, everyone is shocked, they're looking intently, and the Russian girl is even more scared of Dokja than ever. Vedasan says, okay, he acknowledges Dokja as a constellation, but there's 2 more requirements to become a nebula. First is money. He says to Dokja that to become a nebula, you need a certain amount of coins. Dokja says he has enough and blah blah. Second is the most important. He needs supporters. Dokja says to himself, yeah, this is going to be the biggest trouble. Veda says, how will you get supporters? And Junghyuk says, they will get supporters right now, and asks if there's anyone in the audience that supports their decision. At first, no one raises their hand or no one supports it, but then at the last second, Persephone supports it. So 1 out of 5 done. Then immediately after, the prisoner of the golden headband also says he supports it. Then right after that, the demonic judge of fire, Uriel, also says she supports them, so 3 out of 5 are done. Just as it seems that this is as far as they go. Goryo's top swordsman also says that he supports their nebula. So that's 4 out of 5, and then immediately after, 2 historic constellations say that they support him. Dokaibi says some wait, you can't suddenly voice your opinion that quickly. And I'm honestly not sure if they actually managed to create the nebula. I mean, I know that Dokja is a constellation, but I'm not sure if they got officially recognized as a nebula then. Because you know who crashed the meeting? The Outer World gods. So there was actually a good chance that Dokja managed to create a nebula. But the Outer World gods interrupt the ceremony and ask, why didn't you invite us? Before the words could reach Dokja and Junghyuk, Uriel / the demonic judge of fire and Persephone cover their ears to, I guess, not be able to hear the words of an Outer World god, so they wouldn't, I guess, die, or I don't know. They get sent back down to Earth, and that's the end of this scenario, or this mini arc. This is a solid A tier. Nothing much to comment, very good arc. Next is main scenario 9. This arc is also pretty unique. This takes place in another world, and I really like how you can see right now, there's nothing specified. 00000 time limit. Unknown, reward none. There's not even a failure. It's just unknown, which is really interesting to me. But honestly, I really like the start and the concept, but this arc was pretty boring. I'm going to say boldly, I didn't like this arc. After the start point, I didn't like the other 10th evil. I found him to be kind of bland. He could have had so much more potential. In this arc, sure, we had a lot of character interactions and character development, which was very good. I liked it. Gil-young and Yosung, definitely the MVPs. But other than that, honestly, didn't really like this arc. I'm going to have to say, it's not D or C. It's a B tier. And now, it might be the shortest saga / arc. I really like this arc. The first 2 or 3 chapters is like the introduction. It's like preparation for the expedition. And as soon as they enter the Demon King's palace, Junghyuk and Dokja immediately know something. They rush over to the Demon King to see, and they see that there's so many Dokaibis air just discussing what to do. And they see the Demon King. This would immediately explain why the 10th and 9th strongest incarnations were suddenly dead one day. And that immediately made Pildu and Jihye able to join that scenario, because the 9th and 10th spots were killed. Then Dokja immediately knows that the constellation used those incarnations to go in early and kill the Demon King before the scenario even started. He thinks to himself, why would the constellations risk the probability storm and also killing their incarnation just to kill the 73rd Demon King before they got there. If I remember correctly, the Dokaibi were left because the Starstream was correcting the scenario, and the updated 10th main scenario was that one of the 11 people participating in this have to take the Demon King's stone to become the 73rd Demon King. Then either the Demon King has to kill all 9 or all 10 of the other incarnations there, or the incarnations have to kill the new 73rd Demon King within 30 minutes. For some reason, Junghyuk rushes over immediately to take the stone, so he would be the sacrifice. Junghyuk wanted to take the responsibility to die for their team because he knew that Dokja was a better leader than he was, and that Dokja might be the one to save the world. And then suddenly, Tanga just snatches the stone away, and Dokja just tells her to run and not let Junghyuk take the stone. But it's too late. Junghyuk is just too fast and too strong to be able to run away from. He snatches the stone back, and everyone lunges at him, including Dokja. He shrinks, and he uses his lightning ability to fight on basically equal grounds with Junghyuk. But then he does a glitch. He literally does a glitch. He turns his body back, and then for a split second, you're still in your lightning form, while you're in your real body, or you're in your normal sized body, because the lightning ability, you're only supposed to use it while you're in mini form. So that huge attack absolutely knocks Junghyuk out cold, and Gil-young actually catches the stone. Dokja says to hand it over, and Gil-young says that this time Dokja will try to become the Demon King. Dokja just snatches the stone, and he actually becomes the Demon King. No one wants to attack him now, because it's Dokja. Why would they try to kill him? Then he whispers to So-young, telling her to kill him and get the others to also be involved. She whispers back that she's not some kind of monster, but agrees. She then screams an actually really good argument. Be grateful to Dokja that he sacrificed himself for you. That you should be grateful and accept his offering to save everyone else for the price of his own skin. Then she lunges at him, Dokja thanks him, and then slowly, one by one, everyone begins to join the fight. The last one, apart from Junghyuk, to join is Hee-won. He notes to himself that apart from Hee-won and Junghyuk, no one has the attack power to actually kill him, or kill him in time at least. He tries to convince her that he will be back. Of course, Hee-won isn't happy with this, but she has no real choice. She uses her ability, Hour of Judgment, and all of the constellations agree with her decision apart from one that strongly opposes. Demon-like Judge of Fire. Dokja straight up speaks to the demon-like Judge of Fire / Uriel, tells her that this needs to be done. After a bit of convincing, she agrees. Hee-won uses her ability. That ability does a lot of damage. After some fighting, there's only 5 minutes left in the subjugation time, and everyone is exhausted, and it seems like they won't be able to do this in time. But in that moment, Junghyuk regains consciousness, and he is healed by her lover. I don't remember her name right now. Then he immediately starts going one-on-one with Dokja, and they're on equal footing. In fact, I'd say Junghyuk is maybe even stronger a little bit. Then Dokja tells him to use the Heavenly Sword of Gathering Clouds. Junghyuk warns him that he actually won't be able to revive if he uses it, and Dokja says that he's aware. Junghyuk uses the sword and stabs him, and Dokja dies. Or more precisely, a portal behind him appears, and Junghyuk tries to grab him, but he can't because it's almost like he's ash. So everyone screams out to him, but it's already too late. And that's the end of the first season. So I think this is either high A tier or low S tier. Let's put this at the A tier. This could have been a bit longer. This was only 10 chapters. So thank you for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like and subscribe. I hope to see you next time, and bye.